Why would a supposedly just and benevolent God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? This is a question for the ages. The short answer is because ultimately we are here to learn. That's one of the main reasons that we're born here in the first place, to learn and evolve. And powerful lessons are often concealed behind suffering. Lessons that we otherwise wouldn't discover, or even if we did, they wouldn't have the same impact. In other words, without the suffering, we wouldn't be able to internalize and integrate them to the same extent. But it's also a byproduct of free will and choice, which requires a certain level of diversity as an underlying precondition. If there's only one way of doing or experiencing something, then you really don't have any choice, and free will becomes pointless. But if there are 100 different options, now you've got personal say in the matter, and you can exercise your free will. But the catch is that not all of these choices will be good. Some will be self-centered and driven by ego, some will be dangerous or destructive to oneself or others. That's part of the polarity that goes hand in hand with diversity. You get the good and the bad. An example that came to mind the other day was in regards to nature and the food chain. Specifically, why does one animal need to kill and eat another when the sun is always shining and providing energy for free? Why can't all life forms simply live together peacefully and get their food requirements through sunlight alone? Think of how much pain and suffering that would alleviate throughout the animal kingdom. The answer is because then there would only be plants. Think about it. Why would an organism need to move around if they can just park themselves somewhere sunny, receive water through the rain, and have all of their energy needs satisfied? Likewise, there'd be no reason for being able to actively scan and navigate the environment in search of food. That's why plants simply root themselves in place and wait for it to come to them. Then you might say, okay, but then why can't animals all be herbivores and just get their energy from eating plants? Why does this brutal, savage, predator-prey dynamic need to exist? The answer is because this allows for greater diversity. It might be possible for all creatures to be plant eaters, but then you'd have far fewer species in total. Otherwise, they'd quickly overrun and devour all the vegetation. So, something was needed to maintain balance, and that's where carnivores come in. They keep the herbivores in check. You could even say that predators indirectly protect the plants, which is an interesting way to reframe it. Okay, fine, but is this greater diversity really worth the cost of all that added suffering? Now, this is a good question. Maybe, maybe not. But if not, you wouldn't have humans and other more complex life forms, and evolution would pretty much grind to a halt. It's the constant tug and pull of natural selection that forces species to adapt and change. Without predators, this selective pressure would largely disappear. And furthermore, for what it's worth, the more varied diets, for omnivores like us in particular, allow for greater freedom and choice in terms of what one is able to eat. So that is the trade-off. More diversity equals more complexity and more freedom, and ultimately, yes, more suffering as well. But again, suffering in the long run can actually be desirable if it allows for more lessons in evolution to occur. And we're talking about spiritual evolution too, not just biological evolution. So to bring this full circle, why does God allow so much suffering? Why does it seem to be built into all life on this planet? 1, because it's a powerful learning device. 2, because it's a natural consequence of greater complexity and diversity. And 3, because of this greater diversity, we have an expanded capacity for free will and choice. A fourth possibility relates to karma, but we're not going to get into that here, and it ties back into number 1 anyway. Alright, let's briefly tackle this from a different angle now and consider the alternative. Imagine for a moment a more spiritually advanced world where little to no suffering exists. Let's call it heaven for lack of a better term. In heaven, you'd have no capacity to harm another, even inadvertently, nor to be harmed in any way yourself. This sounds amazing, no doubt, but the upshot is that it necessarily restricts your freedom, and it would therefore place limits on your growth. If you're not allowed to make mistakes, then where's the lesson to be found? Heaven isn't a place for growth or evolution, though. It would have to, by definition, be relatively stagnant, as all life forms or denizens of this realm would have already evolved to the max, or else be completely prohibited from acting in any other way that is less than optimal. This is the end game, or perhaps like a vacation between lives where you just bask in bliss and beauty and love, but in any case, there is no real opportunity for growth or variety to be found here. That's what places like Earth are for. And part and parcel of all the variety and diversity that we find here in the physical is indeed suffering, which is one of the primary catalysts for growth and evolution. Without pain, without loss, without fear, without death, there would be stagnation. So what seems like unnecessary suffering or even evil from the perspective of our limited ego is actually an essential piece of the puzzle when you sort of pull back and see it from a higher level perspective. Hopefully that all made some sense. Keep in mind that this wasn't meant to be a comprehensive explanation by any means. We're merely scratching the surface here. But hopefully that at least provides some insight into why there is so much pain and suffering in the world. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.